This passage is on Aztec history. It's got points about how they viewed history, how they recorded history, and things like that. The passage was slightly difficult to read, but the questions could be answered if you understood the flow of the passages properly, a flow of the points in the passage properly. Let's have a quick summary before we look at the questions. The Aztec historians, creators of a genre called Shupawali, developed a highly effective way of keeping satisfying memories alive. So they developed a good method of keeping their memories alive. The pictographic texts that the Itzcoatl burned were only a part of the Aztec way of keeping history. The glyphs served as mnemonic devices designed to elicit volumes of speech. The image, so basically he's saying they found a way of storing, recording what was going on. And what did they do? They had pictographic texts to record what was going on. Part of it was burned, but they were only one of the way. They also had these glyphs which served as devices designed to elicit volumes of speech. The image of smokes billowing from a burning temple reminded the speaker to describe a certain group's defeat. A winding sheet over a chief's head sparked the story of his death. So they had all these pictographic images which told the storyteller what to emphasize on while narrating the story. How can we know the details of exactly what they said? Their narration, counterintuitively in some ways, have been preserved because of the Spanish Conquest. Intuition, what you expect to happen, right? Your feeling of what is the natural course of things. Counterintuitively is against what you expect as a natural thing. So he says that their narrations, what they said, exactly what did they say, the pictographic script has kept part of the story, but how do we know what they exactly said? He says that counterintuitively was preserved because of the Spanish conquest. You would expect conquest to destroy records, but here he says counterintuitively the Spanish conquest preserved what they said. How did that happen? The Spaniards aimed to produce a local elite who would help them rule. So they educated many of the boys and young men in the Roman alphabet. So when during the Spanish conquest of the Aztecs, they wanted to develop an elite group which could, obviously high class, which could read. So they taught young boys and young men the Roman alphabet. It was the priests who taught them so that they would be able to study the Bible. So the priests, the Spanish priests, taught them so that they could read the Bible. The indigenous studied scripture with the friars, and inevitably they took the sound transcription system home with them. So the local people would learn with the friars or the priests, and they took the sound transcription system back home. So they learned the sound transcription system. There they asked the elders to tell them old stories as they used to say them aloud. And then the young scholars wrote down their elders' stories, listening to the sounds of the words in Nahuti, their own language, and transcribing them onto the paper in the best handwriting in the alphabet taught them by the friars. This is how they recorded it. The Spanish taught them the Roman alphabet. These guys came home. There they asked their elders, tell us those stories. And they recorded the stories in the alphabet or that they learned in their best handwriting. The sounds of the words in Nahuti, their own language, but they wrote it in the Roman script. For many years, however, scholars read them with skepticism. There are a lot of doubts on this. The histories were not like the books such as the Florentine Codex that the Aztecs wrote working side by side with the friars, answering the Spaniards' questions and drawing pictures of a specific plant or god. These histories weren't like the books, like the Florentine. So there's a book called the Florentine Codex. The Asterix wrote them working with the friars and answering the Spaniards' questions. So the Spaniards wanted to know more. They were asking questions, and these histories were written answering the Spaniards' question and drawing pictures of a specific plant or god. These were wide-ranging, so these histories are different from that. Those Spanish answering, the youngsters answering Spaniards' questions and writing it down. These histories were different from that. What was different about these histories? They were wide-ranging, confusing histories about mysterious pre-conquest political dramas, often without any apparent narrative. Okay, they were confusing, they were wide-ranging, they were about mysterious political drama, and they appeared to be without any apparent means appeared to be narrative or context. They did not even proceed in chronological order. That is why there was no chronology. There appeared to be no coherence, no context, no narrative. So they were different. In fact, they frequently covered the same ground multiple times. So in those histories, the same subject was repeated multiple times. Recently, it has become clear to those who study these Aztec annals that the repetition is a feature, not a quirk or a bug. Recent studies have said that repetition is not a mistake, not a quirk, not a bug. That is a feature that was deliberately a part of those histories. The reason is that whenever they came to a period of contention, a period when there was controversy or a place where things could have turned out differently, the history teller turned into a sort of director. What did he do? He brought in a series of speakers to the fore in order to speak. So whenever there was controversy or lack of clarity at a particular point, the history teller invited people to speak. For the Aztecs, so different perspectives were recorded. For the Aztecs, history did not require textbook-like consensus. In their understanding, the truth was not singular and could accommodate different perspectives. This pattern had almost certainly been part of their social practice for many generations, as they sat around campfires talking and telling stories. So they included various perspectives on the truth. For them, it is not singular. It's not just one version. There were different perspectives that they included. And they now turned it into an art form, a formalized way of keeping history that literally depended on multiple speakers standing up at different points. Yet, now whenever you come across this word yet or but, be very careful. What comes after it is an important point. This relativism, differences in perspective is relativism. You believe in one thing, I believe in one thing, that history is recording both perspectives or many more perspectives. This relativism did not believe that the Aztecs believed that there was no truth. They never said they believed in truth. They did not believe there was no truth. Their historians never gave up on the idea that there is a truth that transcends differences in perspective. They believed in truth, that the truth transcends all differences of perspective. There is a truth which is beyond all different perspectives. They believed in it, yet they also believed in different perspectives of the same truth. All right, very interesting. Last, their histories reminded listeners that together they had trekked a long way. So people have, history is a journey through time. So it reminded listeners that together they had trekked a long way over rough terrain, through painful events to come to the present moment. They weren't now about to give up everything with a shrug of the shoulders or an implicit conclusion that no one could ever know what happened or why. Right? They could not. So they have to go back. History was recorded. You have come through a long path, facing a lot of obstacles. So we are not going to give up saying, oh, we cannot know what happened and why. We're not going to give up. So they believed in recording what happened and why. Clear? On the basis of the passage, which one of the following worldviews can be inferred to be the closest to that of the classic Aztec? Again, we know what are the views of the classic Aztec as far as history is concerned, as far as events are concerned. Correct? Let's see which one is closest to that of the classic Aztec. A tribe that has a pictographic script. Well, Aztecs also had a pictographic script. A tribe that has not been conquered and colonized, this can't be this. The Spaniards conquered and colonized it, and the Spaniards, in a way, inadvertently taught the Aztecs the method to record their history. A tribe that has several interpretations of history between A and C, which is closest to the Aztecs, which worldview is closest to the classic Aztec. C, they recorded their history in the pictographic script. Doesn't mean that's their view, that's the technique used by them. But what was their view? That an event can have different perspectives. An event in history can be told from different perspectives. In any contentious issue, the authors, the history teller, asked people to speak up about it. Therefore, a tribe that has several interpretations of its history is closest to the classic Aztec history. So C is my answer.